Gladys Berejiklian goes on the offensive over her past relationship with a disgraced former MP. Good evening, I'm Kirsten Aiken.
And I'm Jeremy Fernandez at State Parliament with the very latest as the Premier fights to keep her job.
This is ABC News. Daryl Maguire admits to accepting thousands of dollars as part of a cash for visa scam. Fears of another coronavirus outbreak in New South Wales with almost a dozen new locally acquired cases. And a major breakthrough in the fight against a common skin cancer. Gladys Berejiklian faced the first real test of her leadership today since her explosive revelations about her personal life. The Premier survived 2 no-confidence motions at State Parliament. Jeremy Fernandez is at Macquarie Street. Jeremy, it's been another intense day in state politics.
Kirsten, indeed, it's been a day of startling revelations about the business dealings of the disgraced former Liberal MP, Daryl Maguire. Today, he began giving his much-anticipated evidence at this corruption inquiry. It heard he received a bundle of cash at his parliamentary office while conducting private business on the side. Daryl Maguire pocketed thousands of dollars in a cash for visas scam. His secret relationship with the Premier, which has since ended, is now threatening to end her career. Let's bring in state political reporter Ashley Raper. Ashley, this has been a rough and tough day for the Premier. How did she handle it?
Jeremy, we saw a very different Gladys Berejiklian today to the one that we've seen over the past 2 days. She's gone from being on the back foot to very much on the front foot. It was a demonstrable change in tactic. She came out swinging today, openly criticising and challenging her perceived treatment and some of the questioning and commentary about her personal life and her actions as Premier. It was clear she wanted to draw a line in the sand, but there's a very difficult thing to do when just down the road from here, Daryl Maguire was giving evidence at the ICAC. From little-known former MP to centre stage in a saga that's engulfed the Premier.
Today I'll call Mr Daryl Maguire.
For 2 years, Daryl Maguire has been under a corruption cloud over his business dealings. Today, he made admissions to the ICAC.
Would you agree that effectively you turned your office in Parliament House on Macquarie Street into an office for Gateway International?
Partly.
And I take it that you understood at the time that you weren't permitted to use your Parliament House office?
Yes.
Right?
From there, the concessions came thick and fast about the business network, Gateway International, that the former Wagga Wagga MP silently directed.
The ultimate proposition I'm putting to you for your comment is whether you agree that during the period from 2012 to 2018, you sought to monetise your offices as a Member of Parliament with a view to making money for yourself and making money for your associates.
Yes.
Do you agree that on more than one occasion you received deliveries in your Parliament House office of thousands of dollars in cash associated with a scheme involving the obtaining of Australian visas for Chinese nationals?
Yes.
So do you agree that one of the things that Gateway International was seeking to sell as part of its international business network was influence and experience that would reach to high levels of government, at least in Australia?
Yes.
For part of that time, Daryl Maguire was in a secret relationship with Gladys Berejiklian. She was a senior minister and then Premier.
Never ever have I done anything wrong in relation to my position. Never ever have I tolerated anybody else doing anything wrong. And if I ever saw it or witnessed it or knew about it, of course I would have taken action.
Did the Premier know about any of your business dealings?
Andrew, go away.
Gladys Berejiklian has defended herself since the shock revelation of her 5-year relationship with Mr Maguire on Monday. Today she showed she'd had enough.
The people of this state know that I've done nothing wrong. I never have and I never will. And I appreciate the questions you all need to ask, and I've answered them in full detail over the course of a number of days. But you also have to respect my position as Premier and let me do my job.
And then went on the attack.
My tolerance for answering questions which frankly are offensive is waning. Please use your words carefully, okay? Please use your words carefully. Let me finish. Okay? I've given you your turn for the last 3 days. Let me finish.
The opposition is far from done from putting pressure on the Premier in Parliament.
Are you aware of any other members of Parliament who are taking commissions from property developers?
The Leader of the Opposition sat in the Cabinet with Eddie O'Bee and Ian McDonald. Did she know that they were doing corrupt activity?
Unlike you, I reported it to ICAC.
The opposition moved a motion of no confidence in the Premier in the upper and lower houses, but both failed. Ashley Raper, ABC News, Sydney.
Well, Daryl Maguire spent most of the day in the witness box facing that grilling at the ICAC. He was forced to detail just how his secret, dodgy businesses were operating while he was an MP. Josh Bavis has been following today's evidence and he joins us now from the Corruption Commission in the city. Josh, how forthcoming was Daryl Maguire today?
Well, Jeremy, Mr Maguire was composed when he answered most of the questions without hesitation. He spoke articulately and sometimes without apology, like a comment that he made that networking is what politicians do. Regarding the bulk of the allegations, he accepted most of the blame, and despite the persistent grilling, he even made light of some of the facts, making jokes about his poor Mandarin skills. But all of this comes down to the fact that he was operating a business on the side that was undeclared, admitting that he used his position in Parliament to benefit himself and his business associates. The man who spent almost 2 decades in Parliament today admitted hiding what he was really up to.
You wanted to keep your involvement in Gateway International off the books.
The ICAC hearing was told behind the scenes he was touting his high-profile connections to help Gateway International set up business deals between Australian and Chinese companies. It was involved in setting up meetings between other businesses covering wine, steel, milk powder and even a proposed flying school. But it was also involved in offering a visas for cash scheme.
You must agree that it was a breach of the public trust placed in you to proceed with this immigration scheme, correct?
Yes.
He conceded it was wrong to taking a cut of cash from the visa applicant and for organising local companies to take on the migrant workers, sometimes without them showing up.
You agree that that was something that was quite wrong for you to do, noting that at least many of these businesses were constituents of yours?
Yes.
The hearing was told the Wagga RSL Club didn't want to have anything to do with it, thinking it was a scam. And then there were his trips to the South Pacific, where Mr Maguire said he received cash kickbacks for setting up meetings between Chinese businesses and South Pacific government officials. An intercepted phone call with his business associate heard talk of a commission for a proposed casino in Samoa.
We're just teeing up some meetings for the Prime Minister and all those other people. So Samoa is definitely a go.
That's good. We need a result.
So which is really good.
Got to get a bit of cash flow back in the tin.
Although that deal fell through.
You agree, don't you, at least with the benefit of hindsight, that was quite wrong to do that?
Yes.
The only reference to the Premier today was a request from a property developer to meet her, discovered in another phone tap.
I don't know how you're going to do it.
Yeah.
I think I should be privileged to one appointment.
Yeah.
With Anthony Roberts and Gladys.
Right.
And on Sunday, can that happen or not?
Don't know. I'll ask him. When do you want it?
The meeting never eventuated. Daryl Maguire will face plenty more questions in the coming days. Josh Bavis, ABC News, Sydney.
State political reporter Ashley Raper joins me again here at Macquarie Street. So Ashley, Daryl Maguire has 2 more days of evidence to give. In the meantime, Gladys Berejiklian is insisting that she's not going anywhere. So how is the rest of this week going to play out for the Premier?
It is very dependent on what happens over the next 2 days. So Gladys Berejiklian's leadership remains precarious. And look, at this point, nobody is intending to make a move on her leadership, so there's no ringing around and actively doing the numbers. But there are hushed conversations in corridors talking about contingencies in the event that there is a bombshell at the ICAC. And there are a few dissenting voices privately saying that her leadership is unsustainable and they should be looking at the next step. But at the moment, it will be up to Gladys Berejiklian to fall on her sword. And Jeremy, she's made it very clear that she is not going to do that. She has no intention of doing that. So how the next few days play out, it's quite uncertain.
Ashley Raper, thank you. And Kirsten, that is the very latest from Macquarie Street.
Thanks, Jeremy. Every day this week, the Premier has also fronted up to talk about COVID, and today she warned New South Wales is on the verge of another major outbreak. She says it could be on the scale of the Crossroads hotel cluster. The state has recorded 14 new coronavirus cases, and Gladys Berejiklian has now dumped plans to further ease restrictions.
The government has hit the brakes on relaxing more COVID rules, warning a spike in numbers has the state at a crossroads.
Our state is on the verge of being where it was when we had the first seeding incident from Victoria.
That cluster started when an infected man dined at a Casula hotel and led to more than 50 infections and 1 death. Gladys Berejiklian says today she had planned on further easing rules for hospitality venues and weddings.
So they were the things that we were going to be able to announce, and I'll be very open about that and would like to still be able to do that.
I as Health Minister can't recommend that, Dr Chant can't recommend that until we get a hold of this particular latest number of people.
There are many hundreds of patients that we are contacting and reaching out to associated with the practices.
The opposition is cynical about the government's timing after the Premier celebrated easing outdoor dining rules just yesterday.
I want to make sure COVID-19 is in no way being used as a distraction for what is happening down at ICAC.
We still think that is a prudent decision.
3 of today's infections are in hotel quarantine. 11 are locally acquired cases. Tonight, an alert has been issued for 2 high school tutoring services, ACE Tutoring in Parramatta and Al-Jabbar Mathematics in Auburn. Anyone there must get tested immediately and isolate. And tomorrow's figures will include an elderly man in Bargo, prompting a testing blitz there, while it's hoped more people will get swabbed statewide.
Just thinking you might have hay fever is no excuse to not go and get tested.
On Sunday, the number of tests dipped to 7,000. Overnight, it was up to 16,000.
That's getting there, but it's not there.
He wants the number well above 20,000. James Carmody, ABC News, Sydney.
The family of a woman killed at her Western Sydney home is urging anyone in a violent relationship to seek help. Police have described the death of Sabah Hafiz as tragic. They desperately want to speak to her husband, Adam Curriton, who is nowhere to be found. Crime reporter Mark Reddy explains.
Estranged from her family and now forever lost, Sabah Hafiz was allegedly beaten to death inside her Wentworthville home early this morning.
She was a very attractive woman, and I feel very sad that she's now passed on.
There's a lot of domestic violence around here.
Very, very sad to think that happened not far from where we live.
The 23-year-old had only been married to Adam Curriton for a few years. The 24-year-old was nowhere to be seen when neighbours called 000. Police now desperately want to speak to him.
Police have concerns for the male's welfare, and we ask him or anyone that knows his location to contact police.
Forensic police and homicide detectives spent the day gathering evidence, although found no weapon.
There's no knowing what's going on behind closed doors. People can seem like they're happy, they're in a great relationship, and then it can turn out to be anything but.
And it was a relationship Sabah Hafiz's father and sister knew very little about, but has left them heartbroken. Sabah Hafiz's father and sister were understandably too upset to speak on camera today, but they wanted to send a powerful message to anyone caught up in a violent relationship. Get help and walk away. Advice too late for Sabah Hafiz. Mark Reddy, ABC News, Sydney.
And if you or someone you know needs help, please contact 1800 RESPECT by phone or by website. Workers haven't yet received tax cuts that were fast-tracked last week, but the battle over the next round of tax cuts is already upon us. The federal opposition has indicated it will repurpose legislated tax cuts for higher-income Australians for other priorities. Political editor Andrew Probert reports from Parliament House.
You're training me. Scott Morrison's eyes still on last week's big spending budget.
Every worker on this site got a tax cut last Friday.
But he's already spying the next tax battle.
Every worker also gets a tax cut from our Stage 3 tax cuts.
They don't come in for another 4 years, and their future's already in contest.
We're up for an argument in the election.
Labor indicating stage 3 tax relief earmarked for the well-off might be better spent elsewhere. Where is it that you say a rich income starts?
I think the tax system does it for us. There is the highest income bracket goes from $180,000 to $200,000.
Under the third stage, already legislated, everyone earning over $45,000 would receive a tax cut in 2024. For someone on $80,000, it'll be worth $925, peaking at $9,000 for those earning $200,000. Reducing the point at which the top rate kicks in to $180,000 slashes the maximum tax cut to just over $6,000.
That amount of money to workers on those kind of incomes is better spent.
Making childcare more affordable will probably give you more bang for buck.
The Prime Minister quick to remind Labor of Bill Shorten's taxing times with the blue-collar voter at last year's election.
And what do the guys here do? Overtime. They earn $250,000 a year because they work nights.
Well, we're going to look at that. I don't think they should be penalised and treated like they're some merchant banker in Sydney.
A squabble over tax cuts 4 years away may seem ridiculous, but Labor has to lay down markers now, given the election could be next year. Having stumbled on tax before, it'll have to ensure it isn't again framed as anti-aspirational. But in a recession where just having a job is important, Labor's task might be easier this time around. Andrew Probyn, ABC News, Canberra.
Still to come this hour, the compensation scheme delayed by the government, leaving financial victims in limbo.
It's very scary, the thought of trying to get our money back.
Their lives should not be put on hold for months and years just for the convenience of the financial sector.
I guess COVID's going to be the scapegoat for a lot of things, isn't it?
And one of Australia's most esteemed legal minds reflects on his incredible life. That's coming up.
Americans are turning out in record numbers to cast their votes early amid ongoing coronavirus fears and concerns over mail-in ballots. Pre-poll voting opened in Texas today, where a strict new limit on drop boxes led to lengthy waits across the state. North America correspondent Catherine Diss reports.
Texans started queuing before dawn to cast their ballot, some waiting for hours in the state's densely populated cities.
I've never seen a line this long. It's really amazing.
This is the most important election of our lifetime. We've had 220,000 Americans die from COVID-19, and our economy's in shambles.
It's very critical that people go out and vote, and I hope that everyone is voting Republican for President Trump this year.
Each county in Texas, even those with millions of voters, gets just one drop-off box for absentee ballots. The state's Republican governor imposed the ruling, and a panel of federal court judges, all Donald Trump appointees, upheld it, rejecting a challenge to its legality.
It's absolutely absurd. It would be absurd to have a few dozen, let alone just one for the entire area.
Conservative. Former Marine and lifelong Republican Justin Pitcock is voting for Joe Biden this year, appalled by Donald Trump's handling of COVID-19.
This is the thing I was worried about. When a crisis comes, like, what are you going to do? And he denied it, and the only reason he did is because he thought it would make him look bad.
Across the country, more than 10 million people have already voted, 9 times as many as the same time in 2016. Georgia also recorded record turnout yesterday. The fight over making voting easier amid a pandemic versus preventing widespread fraud has sparked a slew of court cases between the Republicans and Democrats. Many are playing out in key battlegrounds Donald Trump narrowly won in 2016 and desperately needs to retain for victory in November. On his second campaign stop since his COVID-19 diagnosis, a mask-free president delighted supporters in the crucial state of Pennsylvania. Catherine Diss, ABC News, Washington.
A massive bomb from World War II has exploded in Poland as Navy divers tried to defuse it. Nicknamed Tall Boy and capable of causing an earthquake, the bomb detonated at the bottom of a Baltic Sea shipping canal. A remote control device was used. No one was injured in the blast. More than 750 people had been evacuated from their homes. The 5-ton bomb was dropped by the British in an attack on Nazi warships in northwestern Poland in 1945. Queensland researchers have made a breakthrough in the treatment of the most common form of skin cancer using the cold virus to kill off tumours. Scientists rendered the virus infertile, so it can't infect people once injected. But at the same time, it switches on a powerful protein that can destroy basal cell carcinomas by programming them to self-destruct.
Norman Barnes has battled basal cell carcinoma for years, the biggest one on his right cheek.
Well, I was embarrassed by this thing on my face, and it was unsightly.
It could have been cut out surgically.
But then you wind up with a wound on your face.
Damage from years of being in the sun as a lifesaver, the 77-year-old volunteered to be a guinea pig.
OK, little sting with this needle.
For a trial using a genetically engineered common cold virus.
Did you feel the cold?
Not really.
I'm giving you the common cold.
The University of Queensland's Faculty of Medicine's Dr Greg Siller says the virus is rendered infertile in a laboratory.
We call it replication deficient. So it's alive, it can infect cells, but when it tries to multiply, it can't.
But what it does do is switch on a vital protein called gamma interferon,
which is the protein that our body uses to fight cancers.
It's kept below -60 degrees Celsius and has a lifespan of just 4 hours at this stage. The first trial gave surprising results.
We had an 84% complete cure rate of the tumour just with 3 injections.
The treatment also switched on sufferers' immune systems to fight other BCCs on their skin.
And in fact, we actually had some cures of non-target tumours.
In this second trial, patients also get 3 injections and take a drug used to treat advanced BCCs to inhibit growth.
When you see the results, it's just amazing.
Norman's tumour has reduced by more than half in just 6 weeks. Basically, the body tissue is dying, which is a good thing in this case. It's too early to call the treatment a vaccine cure for BCCs, but that's the researchers' ultimate goal, a virus injection that kills off tumours that account for 70% of non-melanoma skin cancers in the world. Next step is stabilising the virus so it can be stored at fridge temperatures and extending its life from just a few hours to months. Lexi Hamilton-Smith, ABC News.
To finance now, and the IMF has downgraded its forecast for Australia's economic growth to well below the government's predictions. Here's Alan Kohler.
Well, the IMF released its latest World Economic Outlook last night, and it was a bit of a shocker for the Australian Treasury. In last week's budget papers, Treasury predicted 4.25% growth in Australian GDP in calendar 2021. The IMF is now saying 3%, half what it was forecasting 6 months ago. Economists are saying 2.8% growth next year. So, in all, the government is out on a limb on this. For the world, the IMF has upgraded its forecast for this year, but downgraded it for next year from 5.4 to 5.2%, which is a lot more than it's expecting from Australia. But consumer sentiment has shown a huge jump this month following last week's budget. Westpac described the result as extraordinary. Sentiment has now lifted 32% in 2 months, to the highest level since July 2018. Actual economic activity, though, is lagging. This is an indicator put together by AMP Capital that brings together things like credit card and energy use, job ads, traffic, restaurant and hotel bookings, and consumer confidence. It's stuck at about 20% below where it was this time last year. The share market finished a bit lower, ending the longest winning streak since July 2009. Banks and miners were sold off, but retailers and CSL went up. Wall Street was down last night, along with Asian markets today. Gold and iron ore fell, while oil rose 2%. And the Australian dollar is slightly lower tonight at 71.7 US cents. And that's finance.
5-time World Soccer Player of the Year Cristiano Ronaldo is among several high-profile sportsmen who've tested positive to COVID-19 today. The 35-year-old has no symptoms and is in isolation as Portugal prepares for a Nations League match against Sweden. Australian cyclist Michael Matthews has withdrawn from the Giro d'Italia after also testing positive.
We directly isolated him. We'll undergo further measures to take precautions for the team. Michael is completely asymptomatic. He has no symptoms whatsoever. Yeah, obviously quite disappointed to hear that result.
The world's #1 golfer, American Dustin Johnson, returned a positive test after experiencing symptoms and has pulled out of this week's US PGA Tour event in Las Vegas. The Bathurst 1000 gets underway tomorrow, but it will be a very different atmosphere. Camping at Mount Panorama is banned because of coronavirus. It's devastated fanatic fans like Tony Horton, who's been to every race for the past 43 years. Instead, he's turned his Western Sydney backyard into a makeshift camp. Chloe Hart reports.
So what have we got here, Tony?
Well, this is what I normally take to Bathurst to camp every year for the last 40 odd years.
It was love at first sight for Tony Horton, who's made the pilgrimage to Bathurst every year since 1977.
By the time I got to the edge of the track at 4 a.m, I was hooked. Just the electricity that was in me and my hairs on the back of my neck stood up. And I swear to you, I said to my brother, I'm coming back. This is our campsite at Bathurst.
That's off the cards this year. Instead, his supercars playground is home for 10 days. Wow, what a setup.
Yes, this is the flag-in camping ground for me. This is my trailer. That's where I sleep.
He's got all the essentials.
These here, Chloe, are sauce drainers. So friends of mine in Queensland made them in blue for me. And when you're sitting it on your bench and you turn the other way, you've got to have the Ford logo up the correct way.
And there's room for a few more. After a social media call-out, more than 800 diehards are doing the same. This year, only 16,000 spectators are allowed over the 4 days. That's a huge cutback from the normal 200,000 strong crowd.
No matter what, what it's going to look like this year in regards to the fans and a few other things, I think it's still Bathurst. It still has that aura.
And for anyone who says the Holden-Ford rivalry is dead, just ask the next generation.
If I say the H word, I go to timeout, and I get in really big trouble.
And here we go.
While the pandemic postponed this year's gathering, these punters will be back flying the flag in 2021.
And after next Monday, I'll be doing countdown for next year.
Chloe Hart, ABC News.
To the weather, and there should be some rainfall through the weekend, Graham.
Yeah, there should. We are looking at the potential of some localised heavy falls, possibly about the central and the southern inland of the state. Sydney probably not going to see overly heavy totals. And the city's actually only recorded 4 millimetres so far this month. Today was cloudy but dry, and the sunshine returned through this afternoon. We saw tops ranging from about 21 to 25 degrees. Now, there was extensive low cloud along the coastal districts anywhere south of Sydney. We saw a few light showers south and Narra, but all those falls were generally 2 millimetres or less. The maximums were generally cooler closer to the coast, but above average over the inland. The cloud sitting in the Bight is the next system that'll move into New South Wales. This is as a cold front during Friday. It's only going to bring a few light showers in the far south, but behind that front, a low pressure system will develop over South Australia and then gradually move into New South Wales through the weekend, and that'll increase the instability, also increasing the potential for thundery showers through the state. Now, that front itself will see some showers developing through the southeast, with showers in Melbourne and Hobart, but not likely in Adelaide. And freshening winds in the far west of the state associated with that front could see areas of raised dust developing. Just some isolated showers or thunderstorms possible near the southern border, probably into the afternoon and evening. So in the northeast, some areas of morning fog. It'll be a dry and sunny day throughout. Mostly light winds are forecast, although on the waters, winds will start off light, but then freshen through the afternoon and evening. We've also got mostly sunny and dry conditions across the southeast. That's after areas of morning fog, but that's apart from the snowies, where we will see cloud increasing in the afternoon and an evening thundery shower. Light to moderate winds will also freshen, and on the waters, those winds freshening through the afternoon period. Now, mostly sunny apart from increasing cloud and afternoon or evening thundery showers near the southeastern border. We've also got moderate to fresh winds and raised dust across the western districts. Back to the coast, and light winds will freshen during the morning. They'll reach up to 25 knots on offshore waters in the evening. Our lows will range from 11 to 16, tops reaching 23 to 32, a fairly humid day. Mostly sunny after some early cloud and freshening northeasterly winds, particularly along the coast in the afternoon. Now, we are showing showers on Friday and Saturday. Really, the potential of these remain low, and even if they do develop, they'll be light. It's Sunday that we should see more widespread falls.
Thanks, Graham. Lee Sales is here now with 7:30.
Hello and welcome to 7:30. Tonight, no safety net for people owed thousands after companies collapse.
It's very scary, the thought of trying to get our money back.
These people have a just claim and should be compensated.
And reflections on a once-in-a-century pandemic.
Every decade presents a new problem. There's always the new normal and the new challenges.
One of the key recommendations of the Banking Royal Commission was a compensation scheme for people who suffer big financial losses when companies collapse. The Morrison government was meant to have the scheme up and running by the end of this year, but it's decided to delay it due to the pandemic. As Michael Atkins reports, victims who lost their life savings through no fault of their own say they're now left in limbo.
That actually works. Exercise, I believe, just basically to manage the stress.
Retirees Pam and Michael Helen are working hard to stay healthy during a stressful time. They fear they've lost more than $200,000 in an investment scheme which could leave them homeless.
We don't want to be in the position we're in, where we've got the Damocles sword of eviction hanging over our head.
2 years ago, the Helens decided to downsize, selling their Brisbane home and moving to this new development as part of a long-term rental scheme called Sterling New Life.
With Sterling New Life, you have the opportunity to retire with choice.